Hello, and welcome to Season 6 of Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, introducing corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and celebrate their great idea in our guest blog, found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us from Guelph, Ontario. Sylvia Plester-Silk is an award-winning social worker, practitioner, author, and a new podcast host of 10 Minutes to Joy, who has taken the time to reposition her why and developed the Joyana Cara Method, a new couples work that has been born out of a number of techniques through a great understanding of how patterns intercept our relationships. Let's find out what light bulb moment created this new technique and how Sylvia is reconnecting with the new target market. It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce everyone to Sylvia.
Thank you, Trish. It's great to be here.
You know, you've had a lot going on since we connected. You've been on our show before. You shared your guest blog in our platform quite a few years ago. So why don't we start by talking about your new method? And I think you've trademarked it, right?
I am in the process of trademarking it, yes.
Now, how amazing is that? So I know our viewing and listening audience will not only want to hear about the method, but they'll want to hear about the process for trademarking. So you tell us what you'd like to discuss first.
Okay, so I'm only in the beginning parts of investigating the trademark, but I have intention to do it. Let's talk about the Joyana Cara Method.
Okay.
And where that came out of. So as you know, Trish, I'm very much about my intuition and listening to my intuition. So I had, as I was doing individual work, I would have somebody in my office and they'd be talking about their partner. And I'd be like, I wish their partner would come in. And I started to get these intuitive hits. There's got to be a way to do really deep reparative work with couples as individuals and the couple at the same time.
Right.
And I kept asking myself, how is this possible? How is this possible? And I'm like, how would I use this technique? And so as I processed and learned even more techniques, because I'm always growing and learning and so on, and I was like, I think this could work. I think if we look at it, because the problems from my perspective in relationships are patterns.
Well, and you know, to your point, we're all individuals, right? And so we bring our own individual point of view to a relationship. And sometimes they're not synergistic, right? They don't sync. You know, we have two different opinions. And I love the idea that, okay, let's talk about you, Trish, and your partner, John, and then let's talk about the two of you together.
Yeah. So it's really looking at how do your patterns collide in a way that's not joyful in your relationship.
Right.
So I started with a beta test. So I'm like, well, can this really work? Like I have this, it seems really complicated in real life. Can this work?
Right.
And had exceptional results. Like blow my socks off. When I read their feedback after 5 sessions of this work, I cried. Just such
talk about proof of concept.
Yeah. And like their trust factor went from 2 to 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Like
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so it's just like, okay, this works. Now I have to figure out what would I ever call this?
Right.
And how do I market it? And and I'll tell you a secret, Trish, my intention was to get this out in the world before your session, but this is like the premier announcement of the Joyana Cara Method. So thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. So Joyana Cara, I came up with those words, and Joyana is a word I've created, but it speaks too about the soulful and intuitive path. And Cara is about dear one or friend. So it's like the joyful path to beloved connection, or a soulful method for healing and deepening relationships.
Wow, I love the background to the title that to the way in which you're going to market and share this new technique. because I love that there's a background to the thought process that went into your light bulb moment.
Yes, because back in 2010, I quit doing couples work because I found that I was choosing sides. And you can't do that as a couple therapist and be effective. And
Yeah,
without judging anybody in the field, I think a lot of therapists fall into that, right and wrong. And
sure.
when I look at it from a patterns perspective, and when I'm talking about patterns, it's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that interlock and enforce your behavior, most of which are in your subconscious. You're not even aware why you're doing what you do.
And we all have different triggers for those things, right? Because that's really what it boils down to, right? I always called it, you drag your bag of rocks along with you your whole life, and you don't even
Mhm.
realize what's in the bag by the time you get to a certain age. But you do sometimes recognize the trigger.
Mhm.
But we don't always want to share that with our partner, right? Because we're like, okay, he or she may think we're a little off our rocker. Like, what are you talking about? That happened when you were a kid. Why is that bugging you now? But that's who we are as humans, right?
Absolutely. And I talk about it in my book, Healing is Possible, that these patterns get set up in seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the child that's in a classroom and somebody makes a comment to them that they're not intelligent. They're like, oh, you're not smart. And they internalize it and
Sure.
go out through life thinking they're not smart.
Yeah.
And when you meet them, they may not sound that intelligent.
Right.
But then as you learn about them, you're like, no, 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 you're not intelligent. You're brilliant.
Right.
But this pattern is holding them back from showing that. And when I think about couples, I think about like this silly, oh my God, the toothpaste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't put
Yeah.
the lid on the toothpaste. Well, why is
Yeah.
that even an issue?
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
perhaps to the other person, if you didn't have a clean spot in your home, you would get beaten,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
somebody criticized you because you were dirty, or right, like there's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
moment in time where that got locked on and it has an emotional charge that is greater than the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, okay, so to your point, what is the ideal age? Because, if I think back on myself as an individual, when I was I'm probably like you too. When we're in our 30s, we're going to set the world on fire, right? Then,
Hmm.
especially in our 20s. Then in our 30s, we get a few hard knocks. You get a few wake up calls and you go,
Yes.
okay, well, I'm going to have to recalibrate that a little bit. And then, when we're in our 40s, you've been in a relationship for a while. Most people have kids. There's lots of other things going on. So you really don't pay attention to yourself because you have so many other issues that are more
Hmm.
relevant. And you have to prioritize what we prioritize. But then we find when we get into our 50s and 60s, that's when we actually can sit back and reflect and go, okay, wait a second. What do I want the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to look like? And how do
Hmm.
I want to change my life so that I'm not repeating all that stuff that happened in the past that I really didn't enjoy? So, is there a particular age group that you feel that the Joyana Cara method is going to actually speak to, or will it work across the board?
I think it probably works across the board. I see the two top cohorts
Mm-hmm.
being young parents who are in struggle and
Yeah.
don't want their kids to experience what they experienced as children. They want to be
Right.
present as parents.
Right.
And then the age group of the 45, 55, 60
Yeah.
that are like, when is it my turn?
Yes.
Like, this isn't working.
Yep.
And oftentimes, for people that have children, they spent such an investment in their children and raising their children and that
Yep.
focus, they've forgotten there's a partner.
That's true.
And they're looking across the table and going, I don't even know who you are. And I don't know if I want to be with you anymore. And sometimes that's not marriage breakdown or relationship breakdown. That's just we've forgotten to pay attention to each other and value each other. So
Right.
how do we shift that
Right.
and really start to honor ourselves and
Mhm.
honor that other person?
Now tell me, do you do, because our viewing and listening audience is global, we have people all over the world who are listening to our show, and we've got this awesome platforms now where we can connect with individuals wherever they may be.
That's right.
So, and I know that you mentioned, yes, you work with each individual and then you work with a couple together. Are you finding that it's works as well through these types of platforms, or does it have to be one-to-one, face-to-face?
I think it works equally as well.
Right.
The thing is that for me to do couples work, I need to have both couples on the screen that I can see them both at the same time.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Which is pretty easy peasy now with all of these, wonderful platforms we have, right?
It absolutely is. Now, as you're talking global versus local, I'm licensed to practice in the province of Ontario.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know, because you
Right.
know what? Sometimes we go onto people's websites, but you can still provide information, resources, and advice without the we'll call it the practical therapy, one-to-one therapy, right? Because you've
That's
got
right.
your book and you have resources that you share on your
Yes.
website. So all of those are helpful to people who can then go to a local practitioner, right?
That's right. Yeah. I think what I do is a little bit different because we're doing the actual reparative work with everybody in the room.
Right.
And what I find the magic is when you think, like, I'll give an example from the beta test because I have permission.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so we're in a session. Dishonesty is an issue in this relationship. We go back with the male. It just happened to be a heterosexual couple. And he traces back his lying behavior.
Interesting.
He goes back to being age 5. He's in church. He hates being in church and knows that he can't tell his dad. And
Right.
he starts to lie.
Right.
And he gets supported and told he's a good kid because he's lying.
Sure.
So here's his spouse who's extremely angry with the lying and betrayed,
Right.
going, "Oh my God, you poor guy."
Yeah.
And
It's
so it
become a
builds
pattern.
compassion
Yeah.
for his pattern.
Right.
Then we switch over to her in the same session
Mm-hmm.
and we trace back her reaction to the lying
Sure.
to a childhood situation where something really traumatic happened and she wasn't allowed to hang out with a certain set of friends anymore, and no adults told her what was going on.
Right. So
So then
there's the
he's
betrayal.
got compassion why she's having such a strong reaction to his. And
Sure.
and then and then all of a sudden, he stops lying.
Yeah. You find common ground, right?
Like, the behavior just goes away.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
It's like magic. It's like I get high from doing this
From
work.
yeah. You know
So
what's lovely though? Because Sylvia, we all want to be loved. We all want to make a
Mhm.
connection with another individual, whether it's friend, family member, spouse, whatever kind of relationships come in different forms. So,
Absolutely.
I think all we want to do is be connected. We want to be loved. We want to be appreciated. We want somebody to smile at us and get that feel good feeling. So
That's
the
right.
work that you're doing actually helps people to achieve joy. So
That's
clearly
what
the
we
word
call it.
Joyana, right?
Joyana Cara
Yeah.
Method, and my company name is Path to Joy, right?
See? It's
So it
all
all
connected.
yeah, because I think we don't
Absolutely.
have enough joy in our
You're
world, and we
absolutely right.
need more. And,
Yeah.
like, even as I talk about it, I feel joy, like,
Yeah, for sure.
as I know I'm having a real impact.
Right. Right. And that's what makes the work, that's what gives you the fuel to do the work.
Absolutely,
Right.
right?
Now, tell us, and we'll switch gears a little bit and tell us a little bit about your podcast, which is 10 Minutes to Joy. So we see the pattern in your work around the word joy, right? So
That's
give
right.
our viewing and listening audience a bit of an indication as to why you started 10 Minutes to Joy. What was the reasoning behind feeling that you wanted to share some words of wisdom on the World Wide Web about joy?
So I was thinking, so last year I wrote a couple of books, and they're at a very reasonable price point, and very intentionally so, with
Mhm.
exercises people can do.
Mhm.
Uh, And the reason that I wrote those books is we are in a world with a major mental health crisis.
Mhm.
And there are so many people that cannot afford care, or certainly in Canada, we have such an incredible long wait lists
Right.
for them to get into nonprofit services that offer services for free,
Sure.
that I wanted people to have a solution. And then it felt like a natural progression to then offer a free podcast
Right.
where people can just tune in for literally 10 minutes a, a, a week
Mhm.
and hopefully get some benefit out of what
Sure.
I go on about.
Sure.
And I'm talking a lot about my own challenges in life. I'm talking about things that I hear, patterns that I'm hearing and picking up on that other people
Mhm.
are struggling with,
Mhm.
and sharing that because I want people to know um, about things like this week's is about burnout. And so I talk about my burnout story back in the
Sure.
90s where
Sure.
I couldn't speak for 3 days,
Hey, listen, we can all relate to that, right?
right? And how I made a I won't do this and I won't tolerate this anymore list,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's things like that, like I'm being real on
Mhm.
it. Because I think so often we see the social media and we think, "Oh my god, everybody has this and that and
White
that."
picket fence and it's all perfect, right?
Exactly. And it's like, life isn't perfect. And I mean,
Mhm.
I think I have a very good life. I have a wonderful husband, we have a home, we have a cottage, and we still have challenges.
Oh, for sure. That's what
Right?
life is all about, right? The highs and the lows.
Exactly. And so if I can help you move from a struggle or a difficulty into giving you one piece of a solution that might
Sure.
resonate with you, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love the work that you're doing, Sylvia, because it takes a lot to step outside our comfort zone and seek help. But
Mm.
it also takes a lot to be the practitioner to try to help people find the tools that are going to be a solution that gives them the joy that they need in order to continue in life. Because
Mhm.
the work that you do is just as difficult as the person who's asking for help. Because they're hesitant, they're afraid, and you're like,
Mhm.
it must be really difficult to hear people share their problems all the time because that can be really foreboding and difficult too.
I think Trish, back in my early career, I was working at abuse, women assault prevention. That's what we called it way back when in
Yep.
the 80s. And agency. And I remember worrying about a woman for an entire weekend that her husband was going to assault her and possibly murder her. I had a horrible weekend.
Oh, I would think so.
Just horrible. I was beside myself. I couldn't reach out to her. I had to let her be. I couldn't let my personal fears and for her and anxieties come out. And I came back from the weekend and she'd had a wonderful weekend. And I was
Isn't
like,
that
hold
nice?
it a second. How did I help her by worrying away my weekend? I never did.
Right.
And so I learned way back then at some level, and I've learned it at different levels. Like
Sure.
I've learned it at
As
a
you
soul
go.
now level that I'm not responsible for another person, right?
Right.
And and when I listen to the stories, I know that everyone that comes to speak to me or comes into my office or into my Zoom room has incredible strength, has a incredible capacity. I don't think they're weak. I don't think they're less than me. I
Right.
think they're incredible individuals that have had huge challenges.
Right.
And so all my job is just to hold space and hold them in compassion and do what I know can help them. And sometimes I swear just sitting with them in a loving compassion shifts who they are.
Right. If I can share the word that resonates with me about that you share with the clients that come to you is the strength,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because you need to share your strength, they need to share their strength, and that's really the common element that you then unwrap and unfold to find solutions for their long-term health and well-being, right? So
That's right.
kudos to you for this awesome work, Sylvia, really. And
you.
I'm wishing you, tremendous success on the path of trademark, because, that's not for the faint of heart either, because that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money in order
Yes.
to trademark something. So maybe what we'll do, if I can extend the olive branch in 6 months or a year, when you've got a little bit more experience behind the trademark journey, maybe you can come back on the show and we can just talk about trademark, because there's
Sure.
lots of people that have a great idea. And, we talk about copywriting and trademarking, but you'll actually be able to share the real-time experience of some of the pitfalls, and then perhaps have some solutions for folks. So maybe I'll extend that invitation now, and in 6 months to a year, you can come back on the show and we can specifically talk about trademarking, your wonderful new technique.
Sure.
All right. Now, one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we share 3 words of advice. Now, you shared your story years ago with us, and your 3 words were: listen to your intuition. And I'm going to ask you if you still feel that those are guiding 3 words, or would you change them now? And how would you share that with our viewing and listening audience?
It's hard to let intuition go because it's so important.
It is.
And I think it is accept your patterns and learn to release them. And I know that's more than 3 words, but I've always been challenged with being, 2
Putting
words.
me in the box. Yeah. I love it. So tell us what the words are again. So we're moving from listen to your intuition to enjoy.
I guess it's accept yourself,
right?
recognize the pattern, and give yourself the gift of shifting it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I really thank you so much for joining us today, Sylvia. And I'm very humbled and honored that you are sharing the launch of your new Joyana Cara Method with our viewing and listening audience today. And we certainly wish you tremendous success with your new program and the journey for trademarking. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Trish.
My absolute pleasure. And to our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, introducing you to the person behind the logo. If you'd like to connect with our guest, you're going to find Sylvia's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series. And we invite you to share your business story. Just visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Sylvia and I would like to thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.